Welcome to Mark After Dark, the after-work escape brought to you by Easy Vibes. This is your space to slow down, sip something smooth, and dive into the elegant bohemian side of music. From vinyl grooves to late-night jams, we explore the sounds that wind us down and lift us up, all after the hustle. So kick off your shoes, pour yourself a glass, and let the night begin. Welcome back to Mark After Dark, the podcast where we don't just talk about music, we drift into it. I'm Mark, and tonight we're dimming the lights and stepping into a world of slow dances, poetic heartbreak, and smoky serenades. We're talking about Bolero, not the classical Ravel piece, but the Latin American genre that has soundtracked love and loss for nearly a century. Bolero is velvet vocals, trembling guitars, and lyrics that read like love letters. It's timeless. And even if you've never called it by name, you've felt it. So light a candle, pour something strong, and let's explore Bolero, the sound of love, loss, and longing. Bolero, as we know it today, was born in Cuba, not in a grand ballroom, but in the humble, guitar-filled cafes and taverns of Santiago de Cuba, sometime in the late 19th century. The rhythm was gentle, the melodies simple, but the lyrics? Pure poetry. These songs weren't about dancing fast or showing off. They were about saying something deep, about love, loss, desire, nostalgia. It all began with a man named Pepe Sanchez, who's considered the father of Cuban Bolero. His composition Tristezas from 1883 is often cited as the genre's first true example, a melancholic lyrical song that set the tone for everything that would follow. Early boleros were acoustic, often just voice and guitar, but they carried so much emotion. They were serenades, songs sung beneath balconies or around the table after midnight. They weren't made for radio, they were made for feeling. From Cuba, Bolero spread across the Caribbean and Latin America. Everywhere it landed, it picked up flavor, but at its core, it remained intimate. A song for one heart speaking to another. We're stepping into a short break, and with it comes a song that lingers like a whispered memory. En Cada Latido is a classic bolero, rich, intimate, and full of soul. Let its gentle sway speak for the feelings words can't always reach. I'll be back with you shortly.
Cuando callas, el silencio me acaricia, como el viento que susurra al corazón. Tu mirada tan serena y tan precisa me desnuda sin pedir explicación. Cada noche tu recuerdo me acompaña, como luna que no quiere oscurecer. Eres paz, eres mi dulce montaña, donde subo solo para renacer. En cada latido te encuentro, como un secreto guardado en el tiempo. Te llevo en el alma, en mis sueños, como un bolero que nunca se va. Y aunque la vida nos lleve tan lejos, mi amor por ti siempre regresará. Tus Tus palabras son canciones que me salvan. Cada nota tiene un poco de tu voz. Si me pierdo entre sombras y distancias, tu recuerdo me devuelve al sol. En cada latido te encuentro como un secreto guardado en el tiempo. Te llevo en el alma, en mis sueños, como un bolero que nunca se va. Y aunque la vida nos lleve tan lejos, mi amor por ti siempre regresará. En cada latido te encuentro como un secreto guardado en el tiempo. Te llevo en el alma, en mis sueños, como un bolero que nunca se va. Y aunque la vida nos lleve tan lejos, mi amor por ti siempre regresará. Mi amor por ti siempre regresará.
By the 1940s and 50s, Bolero had taken over the Latin American music scene and entered what many call its golden age. This was the era of the trio romantico, small vocal groups made up of 3 singers with guitars and tight harmonies that could melt walls. The most famous? Trio Los Panchos. Formed in Mexico by musicians from Mexico and Puerto Rico, they became the voice of Bolero for an entire generation. Their interpretations of songs like Sabor a mí, Contigo, and Sin Ti were slow, tender, and dripping with sentiment. They didn't just sing love songs, they breathed them. And then you had solo voices that carried Bolero into the heavens: Lucho Gatica, Julio Jaramillo, Olga Guillot, Toña La Negra, and many more. These artists gave Bolero a face, sometimes sad, sometimes hopeful, but always sincere. Bolero lyrics were never casual. They were poetry, often drenched in longing, saudade, as the Brazilians say, songs about the one who left, the one who might never love you back, or the one who lives only in memory. It wasn't theatrical, it was personal, introspective, even spiritual. Bolero became the music of radios, jukeboxes, films, and live performances. But no matter how popular it got, it never lost that one-on-one feeling, that sense that someone was whispering their soul into your ear. As we pause for a moment, here's a song that brings with it the scent of sea breeze and the promise of love under Havana's fading sun. This is Promesa en la Habana. Let its melody take you down cobblestone streets and into a story only music can tell. I'll be back with you shortly.
Bajo el cielo de La Habana, tan callada, con faroles que susurran al pasar, te tomé la mano, alma enamorada, y el malecón nos vio comenzar. Tus ojos brillaban como el mar tranquilo, y el ron del alma empezó a hablar por mí. Dije, vida mía, sin ti no camino, y en tus labios encontré el sí. Nos comprometimos con el sol cayendo y las palmas cantando a nuestro amor. Cuba fue testigo con el viento riendo de un anillo, un beso y el corazón. Desde aquel instante todo es diferente, ya no hay duda, solo tú y yo. Entre música de fondo y mariposas, con los tambores latiendo al compás, hicimos promesas sinceras y hermosas que ni el tiempo se podrá llevar. Nos comprometimos con el sol cayendo y las palmas cantando a nuestro amor. Cuba fue testigo con el viento riendo de un anillo, un beso y el corazón. Desde aquel instante todo es diferente, ya no hay duda, solo tú y yo. Nos comprometimos con el sol cayendo y las palmas cantando a nuestro amor. Cuba fue testigo con el viento riendo de un anillo, un beso y el corazón. Desde aquel instante todo es diferente, ya no hay duda, empezó nuestro siempre.
As Bolero grew, it traveled far beyond Cuba, Mexico, and Puerto Rico. By the 1960s and 70s, it had become one of the most beloved genres across all of Latin America, and it began blending with other styles. In Mexico, Bolero merged with ranchera. In Colombia and Peru, it flirted with tropical rhythms. In Spain, it found a new home with singers like Rocío Dúrcal, who carried the torch for Bolero with grace and drama. But perhaps one of the most iconic Bolero revivals came in the 1990s, with Luis Miguel's legendary romance albums. With lush orchestration and faithful arrangements, he introduced Bolero to a new generation, turning classics like La Barca, No Sé Tú, and Inolvidable into mainstream hits once again. And while his voice was pure pop, the emotion was all Bolero. At the same time, artists like Armando Manzanero, José José, and Camilo Sesto kept the tradition alive while modernizing the sound. Some added strings, pianos, or orchestras. Others introduced electronic elements subtly, but the soul remained intact. Bolero has even crept into non-Spanish speaking worlds. Its influence can be felt in jazz, French chanson, and even in certain easy listening and lo-fi interpretations. Because Bolero isn't just a genre, it's a language of love. And love, as we know, travels far. As we step into our final break, we leave you with a song made for lingering glances and slow steps beneath the stars. This is Bailar Contigo, a melody that speaks of connection, rhythm, and the simple joy of moving as one. Let it play, and I'll join you one last time after the break.
Desde que entraste en la pista, todo cambió. Tu cuerpo habla un idioma que entendí sin voz. La música bajita, el corazón subió. Y sin pensarlo, ya te seguía yo. Tus manos y las mías se buscan sin temor. Cada paso es un verso que grita amor. Entre luces y suspiros, sin reloj, nos encontramos y bailamos los dos. Bailar contigo es detener el tiempo, es bolero con sabor a movimiento. Un abrazo lento, un giro perfecto, tu risa marcando el compás del viento. Bailar contigo es amar despierto. No importa la canción, si estás aquí, convertimos cada nota en frenesí. Entre tus brazos ya entendí que el amor también se baila así. Bailar contigo es detener el tiempo, es bolero con sabor a movimiento. Un abrazo lento, un giro perfecto, tu risa marcando el compás del viento. Bailar contigo detener el tiempo, es bolero con sabor a movimiento. Un abrazo lento, un giro perfecto, tu risa marcando el compás del viento. Bailar contigo es amar despierto. Y mientras el mundo gira sin sentido, yo solo quiero seguir bailando contigo.
In a world where everything moves fast, songs, news, relationships, attention, Bolero dares to move slowly. It doesn't beg for the algorithm. It doesn't compete for your thumbs. It just sits there, soft, still, and devastatingly honest. You might think Bolero would have disappeared by now, that it belonged to another time. But somehow, it's still with us. Not always in the spotlight, but never far from the heart. Look closer, and you'll see its echoes everywhere. In Mexico, Natalia Lafourcade isn't just revisiting Bolero, she's resurrecting it. With acoustic arrangements and poetic lyrics, she honors the tradition while making it personal, contemporary, and feminine. In her voice, Bolero becomes a whispered prayer. Silvana Estrada brings something even more raw. With just a Venezuelan cuatro and a voice full of trembling truth, she strips Bolero down to its emotional bones. Her songs don't sound like they're performed. They sound like confessions. And then there's Mon Laferte, blending Bolero's tragic romance with theatricality and edge, reminding us that heartbreak isn't always delicate. Sometimes it's wild and burning. In these artists, Bolero becomes testimony, not nostalgia, but continuation. They're not imitating the past. They're telling new stories with old tools, and you'll hear Bolero's fingerprints in unexpected places, in the tenderness of a lo-fi beat, in the intimacy of a bedroom pop vocal, in jazz ballads, or a film score that lingers like memory. Because at its core, Bolero isn't just a style, it's a language, one that speaks directly to our deepest selves. It doesn't entertain, it doesn't distract, it reveals. It asks us to feel without irony, to mourn without filter, to love without defense. In an age of curated personas and quick hits, Bolero invites us to be messy, tender, unapologetically emotional. And maybe that's why it survives, because we still need spaces to fall apart, to remember, to yearn, to listen to a voice that says, "I still think of you." Bolero doesn't age. It just waits, and when you're ready, it's there, in the background, in your grandparents' record collection, in a cafe at closing time, or in the quiet of your own mind when the noise fades. It reminds us that the heart may break often, but it never forgets how to sing. And that's our journey through Bolero, a genre that whispers, aches, and lingers long after the last note fades. Thanks for joining me on Mark After Dark. If this episode moved you, made you remember someone, or just reminded you to slow down, hit subscribe, share it with someone who feels deeply, and leave a little love in the comments. Until next time, I'm Mark. Stay soft, stay soulful, and let your heart speak after dark.